Okay, so in Arup, we embrace the philosophy of sustainability, right? So climate change is a topic that we embrace, and it's always talked about in all the projects that we do. Why is it important? It's because it's costing the world trillions of dollars currently. This slide is actually from about 5 years ago. It was 1.2 trillion, but as of now, we can see natural disasters happening every month in different parts of the world. So it's actually costing us trillionly. And if we do not do anything as a facade consultant or a facade designer, then it is actually a sin. Yeah, so we need to design sustainability. If not, no one will do it. So in most of our projects, we try to strive for net zero energy or net zero carbon. When we design the systems, we think about maintainability and whether we can restore the facade materials at the end of their life. Right? We try to adapt whatever we can to enhance the functionality of the materials. So in Arup, we have about more than 50 years of experience in Southeast Asia. We have about more than 1,300 employees currently just in Southeast Asia. 5 offices in Southeast Asia in Ho Chi Minh, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Indonesia, and Manila. So I'm going to talk about our Southeast Asia property trends. I'll first start out about the opportunities and challenges that we face when we are facing the facade market in Southeast Asia. Right. These are the different aspects or typologies of projects that we dealt with in Southeast Asia. First, we do with existing buildings or mixed development, as you call it. How do we actually enhance the existing values or the assets in say a shopping mall or mixed development, right? When we actually delve into that, then we'll talk about sustainability, how we improve the thermal performance of the facade or at the building envelope, and how can we reduce carbon. In some of the sports projects that we take part in, we look at multi-use and also about sustainability. Asset enhancement is also everyday kind of typologies that we come across. And when we talk about asset enhancement, we actually dealt with the property developers to explore how we can increase the value of the project, how we can actually impose sustainability values into the project to make it sell better, to make their property sell better, and also to portray themselves that the developers themselves are also doing their part in terms of sustainability to the environment. In healthcare projects, it is another notch because we need to design it so that the facades can be cleaned easily, they do not streak so much, and they can be replaceable when it's time for replacements. In the aviation sector, similarly, with high volume facades, building envelopes, roofs, skylights, we also look at on how to design sustainability and also reduce carbon footprint. So in the past, we dealt with a lot of complex geometries in Singapore. I think in China, this is also the same. So this diagram is actually the louvers of the Marina One project, which was conceived by Ingen architects from Germany. So back in the old days, architects like to design the first building envelope in a very complicated form, complex geometry, and our roles were actually to solve them and actually rationalize the modules of the facade panels or the sunshades or the fins and make the architect's intent work. But currently, complex geometries is actually passé. Now developers actually wants their building to be more functional, more sustainable. So then we had to start looking at climate responsive facades to reduce cooling loads, or passive design on our facades so as to reduce energy use, green facades to mitigate urban heat, low carbon materials to reduce embodied carbon, smart adaptive facades to improve thermal performance or to improve the energy performance of the building, and energy generating facades to support net zero buildings. So how do we normally, what kind of service do we do to help our clients achieve their goals? We do things like computational simulations, CFD studies to help our clients realize their dreams, optimizing modulations of the facades or fins, embodied carbon analysis to study options how to reduce carbon footprint. Sometimes we may integrate smart facade systems, or how to integrate electrical controls for sun shading purposes. And in some cases now, BIPVs on facades. This is an example of what our Singapore government is trying to achieve in terms of sustainability. For national and public sector projects, there's a big commitment to have 80% energy improvement over projects that were built in 2005. And by 2050, they aim to have net zero emissions on all government buildings. So in most of the government projects that we carry out recently, we now focus on whole life carbon studies. From the concept design to construction stage, we study in terms of A1 to A4F modules, how we can reduce the whole life carbon footprint of the facade materials. So we also studied different options to help the client actually reduce embodied carbon. These are some of the examples how we explore different technology in current times. For example, how do we open up the building envelope to allow for more cross ventilation through the building facades? The types of glass we can use to improve daylight on the buildings. In terms of resource efficiency, we looked at smart building technologies, hybrid cooling systems, low carbon materials. In some cases, we look at how we can open up some of our sky gardens to encourage public participation in the spaces. So this is an example of what I meant by a very sustainable facade building envelope. So this is a canopy in South Beach development that looks at the 7 factors of thermal comfort when you are using the space below, from daylight, how to harvest natural daylight into the canopy space so that we eliminate the use of artificial lighting during the day, and how we can reduce solar heat gain through the canopies, and how we can allow air to blow through the canopy so that it doesn't feel so hot during the hot afternoon summers in Singapore. We also studied surface temperature of the materials on the canopy and actually below the canopy so that they actually minimize heat transmission from all this material to the human body. Thermal sensation as well as sun and rain protection. So the openings you see on this canopy actually allow some daylight, and the louvers are actually not closed so that they actually allow air to flow through, yet can provide the wind-driven rain protection for the spaces below. These are the later examples in after the COVID that the building envelope in Singapore has done. Okay, like we have BIPV facades, BIPV glass on canopies. Okay, then now I'll talk about construction challenges in Southeast Asia. These are trends that I think that that the Chinese market can actually take note of when they try to enter Southeast Asia. Typically, in Singapore, we have a very strict regime in terms of regulations and codes. Right. For example, the facade works must comply to the requirement under the Building Control Act in Singapore. And that's actually a document which is you can download from the web, which is called the Acceptable Solutions for the Facade market. Right. And compliance is typically led by the QP to achieve approvals, permits before you can start installing the first curtain wall panel. And in that submission, there is also a series of documents that the QP need to submit. So the structure elements of the facade in terms of submission are split into two parts. One is called the design submission and the other one is called the supervision verification. So the QP is called a qualified person. He must be a professional engineer registered with the PE board with a valid practicing certificate. Right. In the entire scope of works from design to construction is split into two. One is called the QPD, which is the design, where he submit the drawings and the calculations to the authority to get approval before installation. The second is the QP supervision, where the QP actually supervises the works on site, with the help of his crew of inspectors. We call the resident engineer or the resident technical officer. Okay, so in terms of design, typically the design must comply with codes and standards listed in BCA. So in Singapore, the codes and standards are actually very prescriptive. There's a whole book that you need to comply, and the common codes that we use are the Eurocode series. For aluminium is EN 755. Glass we still use the Australia standard, or in some cases the ASTMs. For steelwork, we still are using the British or Euronorm 1993. One of the key items that the audience needs to note that standards that are not listed within the BCA approved documents, such as the codes above, is not acceptable to be used in Singapore. This is a challenge we face when we sometimes deal with the foreign contractors, where they insist to use their local standards and try to impose in Singapore, but unfortunately this cannot be used because our local BCA actually do not recognize them to be submitted as part of the document submission. During site supervision, the QP actually needs to ensure that the site installation is in accordance to the drawings. During the submission, the design submission that I mentioned, they actually submit to BCA. It is encrypted and considered as approved for construction. So on site, they actually need to comply to this set of approved drawings to install. So if there's a deviation, this needs to be discussed with the QP before you can proceed the next stage or the rectification works. Right, so the QP supervision, which is the PE, he's assisted by the RE or RTO to help to do the day-to-day inspections, such as welding inspections, top of the bolt and nuts, or in some cases inspection of the hook brackets. And the minimum number of site inspectors is stipulated by BCA, which is tied to the contract sum declared in the contract. In the QP supervision plan, this is in our facade world, we call our ITP, inspection test plan. It is actually quite similar, where the QP needs to write a supervision plan, okay, from the factory, what needs to be inspected in the glass factory, what needs to be inspected on the extrusions and assembly inspections, glazing inspections, all the way to delivery, all the way to site. So it's similar to our ITPs that we always draft during our projects. And on site, some of this the QP is also authorized to carry out NDT tests, random non-destructive testing on materials such as extrusions, the bolts and nuts, fire stops, glass, etc. And these tests will need to be carried out by a SAC Singlass laboratory, recognized laboratory as an independent ITA. And the RE or the RTO on site will be asked to also witness together with the contractor. So in summary, it's very crucial for the facade contractor to comply with the local authority requirement because if any failure to comply, it may cause a delay on the site progress. And in some cases, if accidents happen, the contractor will be blacklisted by the authority. When you get blacklisted, you can no longer participate in government projects for a number of years. So it's also important to note that the QP is there to assist the facade contractor on how to comply with Singapore requirements, not as a person who wields a stick to beat the contractor. So it's more of a two-way communication between the contractor and the QP. Lastly, the contractor needs to note that they need to be adaptable and flexible in the market in terms of design and site construction approach, right? So as to meet the local requirement. I think that's all for myself. I will hand on to the second part of the presentation to my colleague Sarah. Yuan.
这个是好，谢谢大家。我用中文来讲OK， 其实我今天没有准备太多的 slide， 是因为我也是去年才真的去马来西亚工作。那么我想给大家介绍的其实是我在这一段时间的一些感受，以及可以感受到大家对这个出海的迫切。但是回归到我们的主题，我们出海出去，我们需要知道的是哪些？不仅仅是你去接一个项目。可能我们需要对我们自身的素质和当地的了解有一些更深入的一个理解吧。那我谈一下我在马来西亚的一个感受。大家可能最近比较多的是关注在东南亚的一个机会，大家都说东南亚是很热的。那为什么还有一个热的对我们来说比较友好呢？是因为我们东南亚有很多的华人。包括马来西亚有很多华人。那刚才我们的那个万斯先生也说，他也大家可以看到他也是一个华人。但是呢，我们的这些东南亚其实它有很多的种族，它有他自己的生活习惯，有自己的工作的习惯。介绍一下就比如说在我们的工作中，我们在中国可能有我们自己的工作习惯，比如说我们早上。我们想要一个材料了，下午可能我们就找到了供应商，晚上报价来了。但实际上在国外不是这样子的，我们可能想要一个东西，但是我们要走很多的流程，我们需要跟对方签订保密协议，对方才能给我们报价。这个时间其实在中国可能来说，大家是觉得浪费了很多时间。但是在国外，这个流程是我们在做项目中必须要考虑到的。我们对这个项目的计划和安排到底是什么样，我们的设计流程必须要考虑到它。那么当然我们要尊重当地的一些这个语言。刚才万先生讲话的时候，大家可以看到他说的是英文。他虽然跟我的交流也是中文就像我现在跟大家交流一样，也是用中文，但是所有的工程的语言都是用的英文。这个英文不是我们日常说的这种英文，可能你比如说表达一个好，大家可以说 good， 可以说 well， 可以说 excellent， 但是你去表达一个我们的专业的术语的时候，你可能只有一个单词可以表达它。比如说我们说阳极氧化，你可能只能用 ionized， 你不能用别的单词去替代它。所以对于我们的出海我们的自身的素质是有一定的要求的。我们不是说到那里只是做一个画图匠，我们需要跟当地的团队去沟通去交流。 这是我目前一个比较深刻的一个感受。那为什么说到挑战和机遇，是我自己的一个感受啊。这个是举了一个例子，是我们在马来西亚的一个项目，我刚好碰到在做了一个风洞实验。那根据马来西亚当地的规范的要求，在这个因为这个楼比较高，需要有一个这个重要性系数，在风速的基础上还要再平方一下。实际上最后它的这个整个的这个要提高的大概在35%。那35%的提高对我们做幕墙的设计其实有多大的影响，大家心里都是很清楚的。其实是意味着成本的增加。可是我们是需要在这个情况下怎么办？其实是需要我们去查我们的规范的标准。但是对于马来西亚来说，它是一个相对比较怎么说？就规范不像我们国内这规范有很多，每个地方有国家标准、地方标准、行业标准、专家评审。层层的卡壳，其实也给了我们很多的安全的保障的同时，但是也给了设计师很大的一个限制。那在这个项目中，其实我们去查了我们的马标马标对应了英标，英标又澳标又找到了美标，大家波斯抽检吧，最后去得到一个可以使用的一个比较合适的一个安全系数，在风洞的基础上是增加了10%左右。但是它的存在，其实我想告诉大家，我们作为工程师，在利用国外的规范的时候，也需要去追根溯源，而不是简简单单的去乘以一个安全系数。因为在很多的国外的业主，他也不是不差钱，其实也是需要控制这个整个的造价。那还有一些呢，其实刚才我也提到了，在中国我们是有很多，比如说一些评审，包括光污染的评审，我们玻璃的反光率的控制，玻璃的眩光的这个分析，但是在国外可能很多没有，很多时候是靠我们专业人士自己去做分析，去给业主提供合理的建议。我们这个项目是在机场的附近，它其实本来也有一个弧形的一个造型有一个凹槽的造型，但是由于这个楼对这个机场的反光眩光是不是会影响到机场的飞行，其实也是做了一些分析的。但这个是我结合了这个lighting 和我们的这个可持续，跟我们的Facade团队自己去做的这些眩光的分析。其实在没有很多的技术支持的情况下，规范的支持下，我们怎样能够发展自己的一个挑战自己的一个极限或者说挑战自己的专业知识之外的一些这个经验，去做一些我们可以给业主提到的更好的服务。那刚才万斯先生也讲到了，就是关于一些标准当地的一些强制性的要求。那这个为什么要提在这里？其实今天也刚好也跟他分享了一个很有意思的事情，就是我在当地租房子的时候，我发现我的窗户的这个锁座全都坏了。那很大的一扇窗户，大概1.2米乘1.5米的一个窗，开启扇，只有2个锁座。那我的中介跟我说，这个产品是来自中国的，所以它的质量不是很可靠。那我说你这么大一个窗户，只有2个锁座，这个是设计不合理。那当然，他跟我分享说，自从大家都觉得不合理以后，可能也要去跟当地的政府规范一些组织吧去反馈。其实把我们的一些要求也会慢慢的就是增加到这个规范里。其实我觉得我们中国的这个设计师有很强的这个设计的功底，其实我们可以去表达我们对专业的一些看法。那这2张图片是我当时随手拍下来的，在马来西亚的一些看到的2个图片。左边这个图片是其实是我开始以为它是磨砂玻璃，后来我走近一看，它其实是节路了。因为提到节路，我们可能更多的在国内的这个设计师团队里边，可能更多的一个想到，我们的优质，我在冬天在北方才会节路。那我刚到马来西亚的时候，其实我也问过当地的一些同事，会考虑节路吗？因为我看到很多的玻璃都只是夹层玻璃，没有这个中空。 是告诉我的反馈是，很少考虑。当时我自己其实也很琢磨，这个按说应该有可能揭露啊，因为他们的空调都比较低，打的温度都很低，但我也没有敢证实自己的这个想法。可是我看到这个照片的时候，我才发现，其实我们的想法是对的。所以我们的中国的工程师在出海到国外的时候，其实我们自己也要有勇气、有胆量去验证我们的想法。我们的想法有可能是真的是对的。那这个项目它可能因为也是空调口的原因，有可能也是当地太热了，湿气太大了，结露非常的明显，基本上你是看不到室内的，这个是在白天的一个情况。那我想我们的设计师可以有机会去影响我们的客户，去采用更好的这个性能，去提高我们的幕墙的性能。去提高和我们的机电工程师去配合，把我们的这个空调设计的也更合理，其实达到一个整体的一个建筑的这个舒适性。那在下边的右边的这张照片呢，其实是我也是随手拍了一个，这个项目的这个玻璃是就是电动平移门是固定在玻璃勒上的，在国内肯定是觉得我们的安平专家可能也是觉得不安全，包括我自己我也觉得是不是真的不安全。但是我们不去评判它的设计是不是合理，只是我是想说，在国外做设计，我们大胆的要相信自己。你的判断，你要给予一个专业的判断，可行还是不可行？别人建造成的不一定是可以的，别人没做的，我们也有勇气去做。包括这张照片，其实也看到很大的玻璃，他们还是用的这个夹具去夹的。其实在中国现在很多都实现的是一整块玻璃，我们的全玻璃幕墙可以做到20米这个高度。那其实在国外不是说他不做，他可能他运不过去那么大块的玻璃。所以这也是给我们的企业也是可以有一个，大家去思考一下以后这个产业线到底是怎么去布置，未来的市场到底是有多大。其实我们中国的企业也好，还是我们的设计单位也好，还是我们的承包商也好，其实都有很多很多的可能。我今天主要是想分享这些，谢谢大家。